Let's continue exploring the function editor or node editor with a view. And of course, we can use the function editor on multiple things, like attach to the object, to the movements, work with the lighting, materials, and of course, shape of the terrains. And that's what we're going to do. We'll go to work right now with terrain because we can preview, we can visually see how it will affecting. And same things will apply to material distribution or other things. So let's go ahead and create terrain. And you notice we have two types of terrain. We have a high field terrain and we have a procedural terrain. In early versions of the view, the high field terrain did not have access to the functions. So it's meaning when you create once, it will create this terrain and the shape will be locked. You can modify with some brush tools, but overall you cannot modify with functions. Well, currently they do modify it in new versions, because in new you still have access to your simple fractal, which apply overall shape of the. But we don't necessarily want to use this. What we're going to use for this, we'll go use it our procedural terrain, because it's provide for us a little bit better access. So let's go select our main camera, and I want to move my camera away from my terrain so we can observe the terrain shape in our preview windows. Also, let's just double tap click and open properties, and I want to remove of the exposure off from there so we can preview a little bit better. Okay, next I'll take my sunlight and position slightly down so we can preview better shape of our terrain. Now back to our terrain. Okay, what I want to do is double tap click or right click and select edit, and here's our terrain we're going to work with. Notice one thing, right now in our terrain we have 0 edges, but I want to extend, so I don't want to have this mountain because I want to preview all the kind of like my fractals or whatever created. So for this I'm just going to unselect 0 edges, and it's give it us this full look. Okay, next we'll go to function editor, and if you don't have this tab open, you can always right click and select edit function. This way the second tab will open with a function graph. Again, this is in some cases will be similar if you work with materials or some other elements, but we can see we have a very nice preview of the right here our terrain, and as well we have it pre-render. Notice a little bit different from the preview mode and render. And render seems to have a little bit higher altitude versus what we have in a preview. So keep this kind of in mind how it's work. Okay, let's look on our work area. And right here we have our nodes. Remember, the nodes going from the left to the right. So we are feeding inside information where we have the positioning of our each pixel. Next, this is 2 nodes. It just help us kind of randomize seed, so make a little bit random things. Multiply by the constant, so it's make a little bit bigger value, because the values is, for example, will be from 0 to something, 0 to 1, but multiply, we can increase the altitude for this, and we feeding this to our simple fractal. And a fractal also generating after information, give it to altitude for each pixel where to display. But beside the fractal, we have 2 ways we can actually modify this information randomly. We don't look right now on a feeding from the image. So the random we can do actually in a view by using noise or a fractal. The difference between 2 of them, the noise will create a random generated altitude per each pixel. Fractal generating a little bit less of this information, but it will create special transition between those 2 points. And a fractal often use it almost all the time, the noise inside itself. So for example, if we look right here on a simple fractal, you can see as a base it's have this different noise. And we can select what type of the noise it's using for our fractal. So let's go just first and creating noise. I'm going inside and I'm going to create a crystal noise. Again, it's all creating with special patterns, those locations. So we'll go to change to altitude. And if you notice, it's very strongly, we have a change in how it's look. So let's go ahead and decrease scale, maybe just a little bit smaller. You can see we can create a very nice, the planet. In a preview, right here, you can see we have all those crystals. Of course, we can modify them to create a different height, but overall, it's a patterned noise creating by crystals. Of course, nice things about this, we can just now click here and change different. The chip it, which is could be very interesting, maybe for the dunes as a base or other things. And we'll go to pebble noise. Draw Voronoi. And Voronoi is actually very common and people like to use because it's have a very interesting blobby kind of look that we can easily use by scale down as the maybe pebbles on the beach shore, or we can use it for the clouds or some other element. So you can see it's very nice. But again, this is our noise. So let's see what's happening if we reconnect. And let me put it right there. We'll delete this multiply for now. And if we're going to reconnect our noise, fractal, sorry, and we'll switch this to Chopine. So notice it's kind of not visible very well because I remove some multiplier here. Instead, let's go ahead and put this multiplier. Okay, we go to the math node. And let's say our multiplier by constant. I'll just put up front a little bit, like right there. Okay, and I'll just multiply a little bit higher so we can preview. Okay, maybe 25. There you go. So notice what is different. It does not necessarily look like chip, but if we look closer, you can kind of see those patterns. But again, remember the transition between them, it's what affecting. And this is simple fractal. Some fractals can layer different noises together, so it's even create even more complex look for us. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a couple things. We'll just increase a little bit again, so we'll same preview how it's look. Okay, we can work with some larger or smaller scales. Let's go take features and reduce so we can kind of preview them here. Okay, roughness is just overall increased contrast on the noise, and it's just have all these elements. It's not bad if you create a sandy look, but sometimes we can just smooth out so we can preview a little bit better. Okay. Don't worry too much about some of these properties. They will change depending on what type of fractal we're going to use, and we'll look on them closer in the future videos. Right now, what we want to focus, it is to understand the noise, the fractal, and how we can change them. So again, remember, the fractal, it's using the most time using the noise as a main generator. And it's based special transition or complexity, sometimes overlay different noises to create for us altitude for each pixel in the area we're creating. And again, noise will just simply create a random altitude per pixel. Of course, in some cases, like right here with Voronoi, it does create some small between transitions so they can look parenting, but again, it is a random generating. Okay, so let's go ahead right here, and for example, we switch from this to Voronoi. It's what we had before, and you can see how it's look a little bit blobby is different. So let's look at one more things. Let's go to the fractals, and instead simple fractal, we can take it, for example, a little bit more complex as a terrain fractal. Notice we have way more values now. to creating. So at this point, we have our different noise type, but it's a little bit different noise type from what we have before. Before, if you remember, we can select from noises we have it. And it seems like in our terrain, we'll log to what type of noise it's created. And in fact, it's using a little bit different type of noise that we have it from list. And it's because some of those, as I say before, some of those fractals, they already pre-built noise inside of them that you cannot change as a basic noise. So they just only allowed you to change some transitions. And in this case, effect right here, noise, it is how the transitions happen between those points. So let's go ahead, connect ours. And for example, we're going below. And you can see how they change. In some case, this is most likely using Voronoi type of the noise on the back, and we'll just using different between ridges and below it's depend if it's inversing some of those Voronoi noise. But it does allow you to kind of work and change some of those properties. Okay, let's just compare a few other things here. And notice in our simple, we have our noise that we attach. And we also have our wavelength, origin, and wavelengths. It's how some all of them affecting. Oops, let's go select so we can actually preview. Notice how it's reducing on a stretching, and we can also reduce wavelength, so it will be scale kind of almost down. This does help us because Z, it's X, and if you want also increasing, you can always change the positioning. So next, it's a position origin for this. Oops, let me go back to 1. There you go. Okay. Meta scale, which allowed us to create a different scale of the noise. It's expanding through all of them. Largest features with noise generation, it's creating the area for the biggest adjustment. So if you think about this, think about two noises put on top on one another one. Whereas the smallest features, we create a single pixel, and the largest features, it's how big the overlay will be. So and you have it controlling between those two. So this is very simplified, but it will help you kind of understand what is going on. So this is large features. It's like a shape or big size of the mountain itself, and small rocks on this or small ridges, it will be controlled by small features. If we look here, we'll have it similar as well. So overall, meta scale, it's a global. This is, I want control how it is feature, how big is my bigger shape, and smaller features. Of course, you can see how we reduce some of those noises, like teeny tiny rocks almost, so we can reduce the amount of them, or how many of them generating, and we'll just let transition have it. Roughness, as I said before, think about roughness as a contrast between brightest and darkest points. And remember, white, which represent 255, is highest points, and black represent lowest points. So, and we have this contrast that we can control. It's meaning gray level between them. Of course, the highest roughness, the more on the pixels on the smaller features will creating this noise. So we're going again to reduce smaller features, the roughness won't affect because it is going with a single pixel. As we're going more down, the more we'll see of this roughness affecting, because remember that says they work on a kind of single pixel increasing on a contrast. Overall gain, again, it's just overall increase of the signal multiplication between lowest and highest. And some application, maybe if you work with not just with VU, they will maybe handle differently. Sometimes there will be different formulas, but overall it is increase signal or increase intensity. Filtering, this has allowed us overall change shapes, and let's kind of look on this a little bit later, because filtering is quite a bit common in almost everywhere. It's allowed us to change shapes, distribution, other stuff. It's very powerful, interesting tool, but at the same time it's simplicity, so we'll look on this a little bit later. Okay, let's go back to our terrain, and remember right here we can modify. So in the terrain, you're kind of familiar now with all of this, so we can say increase our or decrease our large features. We can work with the smaller features to remove this noise, teeny tiny like rocks almost. Same with the roughness, we can make smoother with roughness, pop up shapes on our gain. And also in this specific fractal, we have an option to work with our noise variations, so we can increase the different variations on the noises, or we can also apply distortions and other effects. Okay, so let's have right here, we have our noise on the top and adjust. So let's look on a couple other ones, fractals. And we'll look on some simple, basic. It will allow almost similar what we have before. We have noise, that only we can work with some harmonic behaviors. And remember what I said, some of them, it is overlay. So for example, a repeater, you can tell how many noises, like for example, if we're going and we take crystal noise, and we can tell how many repeat. Right now just one, so let's go ahead. We says I want to repeat multiple, and notice they repeat more of them and they overlay. We also can increase amount of the 4. Let's go right here with the 4 as well, and we can add how many of those noises will create, how many the offset of them will be, as well how they can blend together. For example, we can say max, so in this case the only maximum will add together. We can blend, which is a little bit smoother, but overall, okay, let's go right here, just decreasing. You can see how right here double ridges, that is a parent overlay, one on top another one. So again, this is probably one of the better representation what is meaning with some like fractals or everything, when it's overlay. One noise put on top of another one and put on top of another one. Okay, so next we also have it, let's go fractals, and we have basic repeaters, simple we look. Grainy fractal, it's similar, we only have it a little bit more with the noise controlled. Okay, let's go down there. We have a terrain fractals. This is actually special design, and it's in some case we can think about this as a meta node. So meta node, it's when you take all these different nodes, we create a complex interaction, and you combine and create one to access. So those on terrain and rocky, eroded, rocky, all this is created in with a Vue, with a team, and they're creating those ones specially to represent the terrain fractals or mountains or other erosions or other things. So those ones is more complex one. For example, in erosions, you can see we don't necessarily have it selections for our noise, it's built inside, but we do have it other one properties, in this case as the rock concentration, and it's how many on the bottom we want to have it rocks coming, so you can see it's have it more action. And again, how I said before, those one more complex one, or the let's go terrain 2 rocky eroded, think about more as a meta node. It's like a complex node again that is combined inside more functionality and optimized for you to use, so you don't need worried about many different small things. Okay, we have fast Perlin fractal, which is same as Perlin noise, but it's very easy, very fast to set up, and sometimes you just don't need it change anything, you just want to create this kind of noise, and it's allowed you to do this. And we also have it different roughness and the 3 noise fractal, which is you have all these different 3 noises right here you can see purlin, and you can combine, put them on top, add turbulence and other things. So at this point, I think we already quite a bit gone over some stuff in this video. I would recommend you just go create like this, play around to them, experiment, and it's most important for you to put it hands on and try to see how they all work. Just reconnect them each, see what they're doing, and don't worry about many of these. They all have basics where you have it metascale, larger shape, smaller like smaller rocks. You can increase contrast or roughness and increase strength of the signal. So thank you for watching this video, and let me know what do you think, or if you want to any other suggestions or recommendations, and I greatly appreciate all your supported patrons. Thank you.